So, what do more than half of all people on Earth have in common? Well, it turns out they follow one of three faiths that, for all their differences, actually share a single ancient root. We're talking about Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. These are distinct, powerful, and, believe it or not, deeply interconnected forces that have literally shaped our world. So, let's get into their story.
First, just take a look at the sheer scale of this. With billions of followers, Christianity and Islam alone account for over half the world's population. And while Judaism has a much smaller number of adherents, its historical and cultural impact is just immense. What you're looking at here isn't just a bunch of numbers, it's the incredible global footprint these faiths have carved out over thousands of years. Okay, so to make sense of all this, we've broken this explainer down into 5 key parts. We're going to start with their shared origin, then dive into their core beliefs and practices, and then we'll get into things like morality and their historical reach across the globe.
So how did 3 totally distinct religions end up being so closely related? Well, that story starts right here in our first section, 1 root, 3 branches. Let's trace the origins of this, you could say, spiritual family.
The timeline here is really important to understanding the whole story. Judaism is the oldest of the 3, popping up around 2000 BC. Then, centuries and centuries later, Christianity branches off from Jewish traditions around 26 AD. And then, Islam comes along even later, with its revelations starting around 610 AD. This order of events is absolutely fundamental to seeing how they all connect.
So what's the big connection point? It all comes down to a single person, the prophet Abraham. See, all 3 faiths consider him a patriarch, basically the first person to make a deal, a covenant, with one God. This shared spiritual ancestor is exactly why they're called the Abrahamic religions. They really are, in essence, different branches growing from the very same ancient root.
All right, let's jump into section 2 and see how this shared root blossoms into some really distinct core beliefs about God, the prophets, and even the nature of evil itself.
You can see the core differences laid out really clearly here. They're all monotheistic, believing in one God, but how they see that God is different. Judaism focuses on God's covenant with his people. Christianity introduces the idea of Jesus as the Son of God, and Islam puts a huge emphasis on the absolute indivisible oneness of God, or Allah. Each one also has a key figure who delivered God's message: Moses, who brought the law, St. Paul, who was so central to spreading the Christian faith, and Muhammad, who is seen as the final prophet. Even their ideas of evil are different, from a kind of cosmic tester to a fallen angel.
And speaking of evil, it's pretty fascinating that each tradition has this warning about a great deceiver, a kind of ultimate villain who's supposed to show up at the end of times. In Judaism and Christianity, this figure is known as a false messiah or the Antichrist. In Islam, he's called the Dajjal. It's just a wild parallel, right? This shared belief in a final, ultimate antagonist.
Okay, on to section 3. Here we're going to look at the more tangible stuff, the things you can see and touch. We're talking about the sacred books, the places of worship, and the rituals that really define them. You know, what's really interesting here is you see this clear parallel structure in how the faith is actually practiced day to day. Each one has a foundational holy book that guides its followers, a specific place for the community to come together and worship, and a spiritual leader to guide that community. Now, of course, the names and customs are totally unique, from the Tanakh in a synagogue to the Quran in a mosque, but this underlying framework of text, place, and leader is a really powerful common thread.
And of course, faith is lived through these huge moments of celebration and serious reflection. You know, think of Yom Kippur, which is Judaism's holiest day of atonement, or Easter, when Christians celebrate the resurrection of Jesus, and Eid al-Adha, Islam's festival of sacrifice. These aren't just days off work, they are absolute pillars of the annual spiritual journey for billions of people around the globe.
Now for section 4, deeds, afterlife, and sins. Here, we're going to get into the really big questions. The moral codes that guide believers' lives, and what they believe happens after it's all over.
In Judaism, there's this really powerful core concept of a virtuous life called tikkun olam. And this isn't just about being a good person privately. It's seen as an active duty to go out and build, repair, and better the world for everyone. In Christianity, the virtues that are prized above all else are love and compassion. This gets taken to a pretty radical level with the famous idea of loving your enemies, which is just a complete cornerstone of Christian ethics. And in Islam, the concept of the greatest deed is jihad. Now, this word is often misunderstood, but its primary theological meaning is the internal, personal struggle in the name of God,
It's about sacrificing your own comfort and desires in order to serve and help other people.
So what's the ultimate reward for living a good life according to these faiths? Well, each one paints a really unique picture of paradise. Judaism talks about a peaceful world to come called Olam Haba. Christianity, as you probably know, envisions heaven as a kingdom up in the sky. And Islam promises Jannah, which is described as a beautiful, lush garden full of delights.
And on the flip side, each tradition also has a concept of a place for punishment. And notice the distinct imagery they use. There's the gloomy, scary valley of Gehenna in Judaism, the famous fiery pits of hell in Christianity, and the dark, black fires of Jahannam in Islam.
So what's the absolute worst thing you can do? The biggest violation? Well, for Judaism and Islam, it's all about absolute loyalty to the one God. The absolute gravest sin is idolatry, which is known in Islam as shirk. That's the act of worshiping anyone or anything besides God. For Christianity, the focus is a bit different, centering more on a list of moral failures we all know as the 7 deadly sins.
Okay, let's move into our final section, Section 5. We're going to zoom out and look at the worldly impact of these faiths, from the massive historical kingdoms they built to their global reach today.
This is such a powerful reminder that these faiths have also been major political forces throughout history. I mean, you have the ancient kingdom of Israel under King David, the massive Christian Byzantine Empire shaped by Constantine the Great, and the incredibly influential Islamic caliphates that dominated for centuries. It's just so clear that for most of history, faith and state power were completely intertwined.
So where are the biggest populations of these faiths today? Well, the centers of gravity have definitely shifted over time. Right now, the largest Jewish population is in Israel, the largest Christian population is in the United States, and the largest Muslim population is all the way over in Indonesia. It's just a fascinating snapshot of how these ancient faiths have set up new demographic heartlands all over the globe.
You know, after exploring all of these differences, let's end on a point of really profound connection. Just listen to the common greetings from each of these traditions. Shalom, peace be with you, assalamu alaikum. They come from totally different cultures and different languages,
But if you listen closely, they all mean the exact same thing. Which kind of leaves us with a final question to think about. In a world that is so often filled with conflict, what can we learn from 3 distinct faiths that all choose to greet each other with the very same word? Peace.